Peter, are you going to share why we're in your garage at all?
That's the question of the day, huh? So I first want to thank Mark Rosencutter for introducing us to Peter. But good afternoon, everyone. I'm Leslie Baumforth from Learning and Development, and welcome to creating a sustainable family unit in a remote education world. With the start of the school year and the many challenges it is presenting to our team members and their families, we wanted to provide a forum to learn about tips, tricks, share stories, and create a backlog of ideas to further support one another. We're excited to have Peter Saddington here today to help facilitate that forum. Peter loves training and teaching Agile and building communities, and has trained over 16,000 students worldwide. He has published 2 books on Agile and personal branding and has received 3 graduate degrees in counseling, education, and religion. Peter and his wife Susan have 2 children, one who attends Wesleyan and another one who is homeschooled. Please join me in welcoming Peter Saddington.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Leslie, for the very full introduction. Guys, it is my blessing to be here with you guys today. And as I was talking a little bit beforehand with Leslie about this room that I'm in, so I'll give you a quick tour. This is my man cave. And so I love teaching and training software development, Agile, as Leslie said, and I've been blessed, even in these strange times, to be able to convert that work from in-person to long distance and doing it through Zoom chats, which is exciting. One of the things that I often do right after I'm done with work with the client is I turn right around and I start wrenching on my son's go-karts. So my son is our homeschooled child, and we are spending a lot of time working with him on not only his schooling and education, but obviously his racing as well. So I will say that there is kind of a genetic disorder in my family. It goes a long way. We love racing. We love Formula One. We love NASCAR. We love anything that goes fast. And so welcome to my place of peace. This is where I get to get work done on all facets for clients and for fun. So let's jump in. I'm going to do a share screen so you guys can see it. See what we're working with here. Super excited to talk about this. This is something that's really close to my heart. I changed the title just a little bit, Leslie, so it's just changed a little bit. But what I want to focus on with you guys today is the topic around a sustainable family unit. And I'm going to be giving you guys 10 tips for parents that have children at home. Let's move on. So a little bit of introduction, you guys have already seen that. There's my information there, and I'm gonna make sure that you guys get a PDF download version of this deck so you guys can have all the information that we're gonna be talking about today. I would be remiss if I didn't say it. There's my beautiful wife and 2 wonderful kids. That's my wife, Susan, my son, Joseph, and my daughter, Micah. It's a couple years old picture, but it's a wife approved picture. So that's why you guys get to see this one. Got to run it by the wife, guys. So what are the goals? So what are the goals for today? Well, I want to discuss with you guys lessons and tips from my experience of working from home for over a decade, actually close to 15 years now, also with 1 homeschooled child. And so over the decade and a half that we've been doing this, we've learned a lot of stuff. One of the first things I want to remind you guys is that even in these strange times, you're not alone. You're not alone. And I'm thankful, very, very thankful that Leslie has brought us together so that we can leverage each other. We're going to be doing a couple of breakouts at the end of today's workshop, and that will allow you guys to bring yourselves around to everything that we've talked about, number 1. But number 2, start thinking introspectively about your position, where you are today, and be able to share that with some of the community members in your company as well. Another thing that I want to remind us is that, love it or leave it, you guys are the best model in life for your children. They can see you in times of stress. They can see you in times of joy. They can see you as you're transitioning your work-life balance during this time of COVID and the pandemic. Be open to that. Be open to the fact that you are the best model, the best mirror image of hopefully a life well lived. And one of the other things that I want to make sure is that you guys connect with others in your company's community. I won't leave you there though. I've put together over 100 resources. Yes, 100 resources. Each of those is its own link. And so I'm going to give that to you guys so you guys are able to, especially in these times when we're maybe reaching and grabbing for activities and projects and all sorts of different ideas to keep our kids busy. I'm going to be providing that to you guys so you guys have well, in reality, you almost have no excuse. There's going to be so many different activities, so many different things that you can pick and choose from. So I want to make sure that you guys get that. In terms of preparation for today's workshop, it's relatively easy. A notepad and a pen is going to be great. So if you have a notepad and a pen or a pencil, you want to be able to take some notes around what I talk about. And obviously you want to have a note paper and pen for the breakout activity. The only piece of technology that we're really going to be using here is chat. And so there's going to be 2 points during this workshop when you can write down questions in chat, and I'll make sure that I can get to as many of them as possible. Let's jump right in. So what is the goal? What is the goal of surviving? Nope, thriving with your kids when you're working from home. Well, I'll tell you a quick story. When I used to travel a lot, I used to travel a lot up north. And my grandma used to live in Glenside, Pennsylvania. And it was great to be able to communicate with her and ask her questions about her history and about her perspective on things that are going on in my life. She was such a blessing to me whenever I traveled up north. And she had said on more than one occasion, whenever I asked her a question about work or work-life balance or how I'm going to raise this new kid that was an oops baby, then raise a second kid who was also an accident. What do I do, Grandma? And she always responded with this idea: relationships are more important than the work to be done. And that's going to be a common theme as we go through this next hour or so, is that at the end of the day, the relationships, not only with your coworkers for sure, but your relationships with your family and your relationship with your kids are always going to be far more important than any of the work that you do. Another thing that I want us to remember here is that we want to prioritize our health over our accomplishments. If you're not well mentally, physically, spiritually, if you're not well, the rest of the family is going to take a hit from that. And so remember to prioritize your health over the accomplishments of work. Yes, I know I'm talking to a corporate company here, and yes, I don't want to downplay it at all because we have value to create, we have clients to serve, and software to build. However, at the end of the day, we need to be healthy in mind, body, and spirit. Another thing that we need to remember when it comes to working with our kids is lifelong learning is just part of life. It's not just something that needs to happen in the classroom. And certainly for many of us who are transitioning into this work from home, educate from home, kids get on iPads or Zoom chats, we need to remember that the classroom doesn't always need to be modeled from the traditional form to the home that you're in now. Another thing to own is your own expectations and to be vocal about these ideas, acknowledging when your expectations are not being met, and choose something else that you value more. I'll tell you 100% of the time, for all these years that we've been doing homeschool and blended educational experiences with our kids, we always try to remember that the relationship with our kids is far more important than anything else. And even if my expectations aren't being met, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, it's okay to defer. It's okay to defer. Another thing to remember is not all work is able to be planned out. It's almost impossible to always know all the variables that are going to emerge throughout the day. And so remember, variability happens, change happens. And last but not least, it doesn't have to look or feel like school. Education is a lifelong journey. And so I want us to remember that as we go through this today. Here's something that I thought would be important. Now, this is coming from our perspective. This is the Saddington's goals, right? The Saddington's life goals are not educational goals, but life goals for our children. Now, you guys don't have to copy this, but these are the things that we have found are important for our kids. Number one, problem solving. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter in many cases what type of work they're doing. I want them to become great problem solvers, understanding how to solve simple problems, complicated and even complex problems. I'm leveraging a couple ideas here from Agile in that there are different models that we should use and models of thinking around simple and complicated and complex problems. But at the end of the day, great problem solvers, if any of you guys are taking notes out there, great problem solvers are the ones who can always thrive in any type of work environment. Number two, communication. I'm a big fan of over communicating, and I have a slide on that that's going to be coming up in a little bit. But one of the things that we want to make sure that our kids are really good at is they're great communicators. They know how to ask great questions. They know how to describe things in detail and use their mind to extrapolate on ideas and to even go deeper on understanding. A lot of help is going to be necessary from you guys as parents to help your kids learn to ask these types of questions, learn to sit and consider ideas, as well as be able to communicate deeper understanding of even the simplest topics. Another thing for our Saddington life goals for our children is socialization. Obviously, we want to give them opportunities to address conflict, deal with other kids, teamwork, and obviously negotiation. The final two things here is we want to grow autonomy in our kids: self-organization, self-reliance, self-learning, and self-care. This is absolutely essential as they grow into adulthood and get past their tweens and 20s. We want to be able to help them learn early on that at the end of the day, we're always going to be supportive of them. We're always going to be their parents, but they're going to have to turn out to be adults someday. And so we want to grow autonomy in our kids. And last but not least, I think is the most important, is that we want our kids to be principle driven. It never really matters all that much how they do the work. What is more important to us is they make decisions based on principles. Is there purpose here? Is there purpose in that work? Mastery, for example, means, do I have the ability to improve myself, grow myself? And finally, obviously, personal growth as well. So you guys don't have to copy these, but these have been kind of an internal manifesto for our house over a decade or so. And I'll be honest, this has emerged over time. We didn't put this together 15 years ago and said, this is what the Saddington life goals need to be for ourselves and our kids. But this is something that we learned and emerged over time that we believe are important for great kids and problem solvers for the future. So let's just jump right in. Let's just jump right in. Here's the first tip. That at the end of the day, your family is not a project team. It's not a software development team. It's not a dedicated Agile team working towards a common product. Everyone has wildly different responsibilities, commitments, and availability. Here's conceit. When I began homeschooling and working from home and all of this stuff, I first looked at my family as a project team. Boo on me. It was a poor decision because I became a taskmaster. I became someone who was overly focused on outcome and making sure that everything was done appropriately. Not only did that increase my stress and my controlling nature at the time, but as things slipped, I became frustrated. Your team is not going to be like a team at work. What we want to grow, and one of the things that we want to focus on, is mastery over self. Mastery over self, becoming autonomous. This is far more important than the quality of the outcome. And I'll give you an example. I remember in calculus in high school, I almost never got the right answer, but I generally got 7 out of 9 points for my thinking. And so that's far more important. Helping our children problem solve and go through the motions, go through the process. Forget the quality of the outcome. It's going to be what it's going to be. We want them to learn to have mastery over themselves and be able to problem solve for themselves. The third thing here is not all work is plannable. Things just emerge, and that's okay. And lastly, stick to our goals and our principles, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. Tip 2. When it comes to doing work from home with your kids, hey, you know what? Routines are great. Routines are a great thing. Don't blame yourself for a lack of productivity. Sometimes we need to remember Norman Kurth's team formation model, which you can see over on the right, is that every team, regardless of whether it's a family team, a family unit, or even a project team at work, we all go through 4 stages. We form, then we storm. Storming essentially is, hey, let's figure out how we can work together. We're gonna learn that Jack communicates this way, or Susie communicates this way, or Martin works this way. He deals with conflict this way. Peter likes to communicate this way. It's our opportunity to form together and figure out how to work together appropriately. After storming and we kind of get some of the kinks out, we get to a normalization experience. And that, after a normalization experience, we can get to performance. And that's where we really want to go when it comes to our kids. New environments always take time to adjust. It takes time to adjust to the new environments. And I'm sure many of you guys during these strange times in the last couple months or so certainly have had to adjust to a new environment. And we're going to talk about that. But one of the tips here for tip 2 is pre-planning in a lot of ways. Plan your tomorrow today. A great way that we began, now we didn't stay this way, but one of the great ways that we began is just starting out with a list of here's the timing, here's when we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z. As you can see, and maybe assume in many ways, this was due to the controlling nature of the unknowns. I tried to figure out how the timing worked. One of the problems with this is life emerges. Things happen and we get off of schedule. And so you can start off with timing, which is not too bad, but you might want to evolve into the next slide in terms of making things visible. But the last thing here is that you are the priority. Schedule around you. You're the parent, you're the leader, you got to get work done at the end of the day. And as my grandmom used to say, whenever I would talk about kids, she used to say, they'll survive, they bounce back. And that's certainly true. Our kids are highly resilient, and I'll be the first to say that I have dropped both my kids when they were young, and they're kind of built like rubber, and they'll bounce back. In all of the years that I've been homeschooling and doing this, I found that at the end of the day, again, my love, my nurturing, my care for my kids always supersedes almost anything else. It doesn't matter what we're talking about or going to be doing for today or the schedule that we have planned out. At the end of the day, it's about those relationships. But remember to schedule around yourself. You have to be healthy first. We love wallboards. So I want to describe some of the evolutionary processes that we went through as we grew as a family. You can see on the top left, this is my personal wallboard. So we want to make things as visible as possible. And this comes from Agile thinking in terms of being able to see the whole of the problem. As you can see on the top left, there's my wife overlooking my wallboard in terms of doing, in progress, and done. And I have a calendar of events that are coming up that she doesn't have to ask me. She can go straight to that calendar of events. And you see, this is from 2010. If you zoom in, this is old. We've been doing this a while, guys. And so she is able to visibly see where I am, and this allows me to focus so she doesn't have to interrupt me when I'm in the middle of work. Likewise, as well as the kids, we can see what they're doing as well. As you can see on the bottom left, it says APA's Kanban board of chores. And so my wife has a big wall board as well. She has a to-do, in progress, and done. If you look real close, it says throw out trash, go to Publix, and vac and steam the floors. I will be honest with you, vacuuming and steaming the floors is always deprioritized because I hate doing it. But at the end of the day, it's a great opportunity, again, to see the whole and be able to negotiate around these priorities. The right picture is myself with my daughter when we began creating Kanban boards or wall boards for her. And it was so great, even at 2 to 3 years old, is that she loved moving sticky notes. She loved having the opportunity for me to write something down, for her to move it to the doing column. And even, this was really powerful for me, even at 3 to 4 years old, she was having negotiation conversations with me. Appa, I don't want to brush my teeth right now. Well, so great. Let's do something else, pull something else. You need to make your bed, you need to clean the playroom. There's lots of other things to do. And at the end of the day, these highly visible, big wall boards allows us 3 things. Number 1, it allows us to see the whole of the work that we need to do for the day. Number 2, constant engagement. It allows me to constantly engage with my kids and my wife around what are the priorities for the day. No longer are we arguing about, hey, you said you were going to do this. Hey, you said you were going to do that. Hey, this got missed. Did you remember that? No longer. Now we can go straight to the board and say, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm focusing on. And we can have conversations around that or negotiation depending on prioritization. So here's the tip number 3. When it comes to seeing the whole and making everything visible, this is where we've matured to. We have a little bit more of a complicated wallboard these days, but I'm going to go through it for you guys if you'd like to use it as a potential model. When it comes to seeing the whole, we love these big wallboards. We have essentially 3 main columns: planned, progress, and the done workflow. When it comes to our scheduled swim lane at the top, this affects how much work can get done in a day. This helps with overcommitting. So what generally goes in the scheduled are big meetings or big trips to the grocery store or some sort of event with our kids, right? This is often, and I'm going to use Agile terminology here, this is often our constraints. It tells us, hey, we got 2 hours or 3 hours of the day that this is going to get done. And so that helps us understand the capacity for the rest of the day. The second thing I really love is our together. This is something that emerged from my colleague, Richard Lawrence at Agile for All, the company that I work with. He's been homeschooling his kids for 14 years. And so this was an advice that he gave me years ago, is that a together swim lane allows us to understand what we are going to be doing today together. And I love this. I love this idea because it's very intentional. Hey, we're going to do bike riding today together. Or we're going to solve this problem today together. Or we're going to read this passage from this book together and talk about it. It makes it visible. It makes it clear. And it makes sure that we're all cognizant that we have to be together during this time. Obviously, my kids are a little bit more grown now. And so we have a swim lanes for each of them, individual work. It allows them to say, hey, these are the things that we're going to be working on. These are the items that need to get done today. And lastly, our sticky notes help us understand the policies of our home. Pink means that it can go straight to done, that you've completed and you're done. We're giving you that autonomy, that self-ownership to do that. And yellow means that needs to be reviewed by either myself or my wife. And so again, this might be overly complicated for some of you guys right now, but it's a great place to evolve to as you start creating some wallboards for your own home. Again, these types of wallboards allow us to make great informed decisions around what we're going to be doing independently, together, and our constraint of the day, which are our big items that need to be scheduled in. Tip 4, when it comes to motivation, when it comes to kids, I'll tell you guys, I have had so many different permutations of wine fests, of crying fits, of frustration from my kids because they don't like what we're doing. Well, I've learned a couple things, and I will tell you that well-designed learning is inherently rewarding. And I'm going to be giving you guys, again, lots and lots of links, so you guys have lots of options for different activities and exercises. But at the end of the day, we need to take an agile approach to this. If something isn't working, we need to change it. We need to change it. We don't want to continue to do the same thing over and over because that's insanity. Assume the positive in your children and your spouse when it comes to motivation. There's always a reason. There's always a reason why they're not feeling motivated, and it could be a larger issue within the system of our house. Have those conversations. Another thing that I would say that I've learned from my grandmother is that she always used to tell me, Peter, assume the best in your spouse. If you wake up every day and assume the best in your spouse, trust me, Peter, you will have a better marriage. And she couldn't be closer to the truth. She's absolutely spot on. And so when it comes to your mental models for the day, assume the positive in your spouse and your kids. We're all humans at the end of the day, and there's so many different variables that could affect our emotions in the moment in time. The fourth thing here is allow your children to choose how to approach their work. You know what? I know if you have young kids, you're going to have to be a little bit more prescriptive. However, I will say that as our kids have grown past the 5, 6, and 7-year age, we have found that giving them the opportunity to choose how they approach the work is awesome for learning, even if they get it completely wrong. One of the things that we've learned and helped our kids learn is to be assertive about their needs. What do you need to get started with this? Yeah, we have this exercise. We have a couple of materials that you need, that you have, that we supplied you with. But if you need more, let's talk about it. What else is required to do this? What can help you succeed in completing this particular exercise or this particular piece of work? Allow them to assert their needs here. And in many cases, I will tell you that those conversations around how to prepare work and to do work more effectively, in some cases in the past, those have been far more productive than the actual outcome of the work, because it allows us to communicate with our kids and say, hey, what do you need? What is required here? What's missing? And having them communicate that back to us tells us a lot about what, not only where they are mentally, but to help them be effective, we can supply them with those needs if they are appropriate. Another Agile principle that I'm leveraging here is responding to change over following a plan. Yes, we can have plans throughout the day for sure, but at the end of the day, when it comes to motivation, we should respond. We should respond appropriately and patiently to these changes in motivation. And again, lastly, our personal responsibility or modeling as parents is going to be the best indicator and best leading indicator for our kids of how to survive and how to thrive at home. Tip number 5, man, I'll tell you, time boxing is the jam. Now, of course, I'm leveraging this from Scrum and Agile methodology when it comes to software development, but time boxing is awesome. It allows us to go deep and focus on our work. And this is something that is often missed from corporate work. And I'm not going to be throwing any stones here at APRIO for sure, but I'm sure many of you guys out there have experienced in a previous company, obviously, a previous company where you're multitasking, you're constantly being pulled away from the work that you need to be doing. And this defocusing, or using a very fancy term, a recontextualization moment, ruins our ability to do work effectively. This not only hurts us as adults, but certainly it hurts our children as well. Work through your day in time boxes. 20 to 30 minute time boxes are a great start. When our kids were younger, we started out with 15-minute time boxes, and that was just barely enough. As they've gotten older, we've moved to now hour-long time boxes of self-work, self-reflection, and working through exercises, etc. However, 20 to 30-minute time boxes are a great start. After each time box, a couple things to remember is you want to review the work. Review the work that has been done. Retrospect the process. So if you're taking notes, those are two different. We want to make sure that we review the work for what it is, but we also want to retrospect the process. Was this the best way of doing the work? Is there a better way to do it? How did you feel as we did this? Was it something that was exciting? Should we do it again? And so in many ways, asking questions during a retrospective is going to allow your child to learn more about themselves and the work that they're doing. In this example down here of my daughter's Kanban board, I just wanted to point out that you can also, when it comes to time boxes, there can be little mini goals. In the beginning, when we were working with our daughter in a wall board, at one point, if you're looking closely, if she did all of this work, she could get a little mini tea set, or as I wrote there, an amazing tea set that she had seen. Rewards aren't bad. Rewards are great. However, they need to be earned, and they need to be earned over time. And so having a wall board, a to-do, a doing, a done is a great way to show progress over time that can build up to some sort of outcome that is beneficial for the kids. Number 6, when it comes to any type of working from home with your kids, I'll tell you, everything gets worse when you're hungry. I'll tell you, when you're smashed at home with your kids all day, more time together, it means more things to conflict about. I can tell you guys stories ad infinitum. Conflict always seems worse when you're hungry. And so plan time for meals and snacks. One thing that I wouldn't say unfortunately, but fortunately I've had to learn is that, you know what? It fell onto me at the end of the day. I do meal prep every night. I have to make my overnight oats. I have to make sure that I set out the snacks for the kids the next day. I even prep the coffee machine for my wife because I'm a loving husband. What can I say? Trying to earn points as much as I can. But that extra 15, 20 minutes that I spend every night before I go to bed meal prepping, I'll tell you guys, it pays dividends. It pays dividends. Yeah, it's a little bit more work to prep it, but I'll tell you, those snacks, when they're at the ready, especially if my kids are hangry or if I'm hangry or my wife is hangry, it's perfect. We can pull out the snack. We can pull out the snack tray and say, grab a snack. Sit down, brother. Sit down, sister. Cool off. Eat some Cheetos. Cheetos seem to be the magic thing right now. It used to be Doritos. But don't hesitate to call timeout. If an argument happens, grab a snack and go back to discussing it. Number seven, sorry. Not everything's important. Not everything's important. This, I will concede, was one of my biggest struggles when I began working from home full time and also educating my son. I thought everything was important. I thought he was going to die if we didn't get everything right for him and didn't do all his exercises. My daughter didn't do all her extracurriculars as well. I used to get so frustrated that they wouldn't complete it. Now, maybe that's the personality in me, but I realized over time that the 80-20 principle always applies. Not everything is going to get done perfectly every day. That's okay, especially when we're stressed and we're adapting to new ways of living and working. Sometimes, and I'll be honest with you guys, sometimes my energy is done before even the tasks are done. And at the end of the day, make sure that when you're trying to prioritize work and when you're having stressful moments, find the most essential parts of each task. Focus on the why. And remember, it's okay to let things slide. When our kids were younger, there's a little chair down there. I'll tell you a story. When I was younger, a chair like this worked magic when it came to focusing on the most important things of the day. Whenever my kids would want to argue, or they would want to say, I don't want to do this, I'd rather do something else, or I don't like this, or he's able to do this and I'm not. We used to go, if you're taking notes, we used to go to this chair in my office, and we called this chair the chair of knowledge and wisdom. It was awesome, the chair of knowledge and wisdom. And so we'd say, hey, seems like there's some issues here. Let's go to the chair of knowledge and wisdom and see what the chair of knowledge and wisdom has to say. I'll tell you the short answer. The chair of knowledge and wisdom pretty much always said no. And so it was a great opportunity to have some fun conversations with my kids early on to say, Appa, I know the chair is always telling us no. Well, let's talk about that. Why is the chair always telling us no? And so here's the idea. You can always use different artifacts, different totems, different things to say, oh, what do you think he would think? Or what do you think the chair would say? This is a really interesting activity that I use almost weekly with my son so that he can start getting himself out of just the educational trappings of, hey, we need to do this work. We need to think of it this way, and it's only got to be thought of this way. Sometimes we say, what would the go-kart think? Or what would the chair think? Or what would that bird think if the bird was here? Bringing in non-animate objects into your kids' conversation when you're talking about focus is a really intriguing little way to bring up more conversation and to elicit a little bit more thinking from them. So if you have young kids, have a chair of knowledge and wisdom. It's a great thing to use. Tip 8, get outside. Get outside. Not everyone has the luxury of a backyard. Take walks, bike rides with your family, and engage the landscape. There are a couple of links there that you guys will have access to. These are YouTube channels, Cosmic Kids Yoga, workout videos, and dancing choreography videos. There's hundreds of videos there. I can probably say that we've, with our kids, probably watched maybe 1,000 of these over the years. It's a great way to have someone else take on that moment for a 20-minute, 30-minute time box and have them dance or have them follow along with this a little bit of instruction. But one of the things that I want to say here that I didn't put down on the notes is that when you're outside, tell stories. This is something that I learned from my grandfather, not my grandmother, but something I learned from my grandfather. He was a master storyteller. And I tell you, whenever we took walks together, he used to tell me some of the most fantastic stories ever. And those are the things, those are the moments that I remember the most with my grandfather. And likewise, I would assume the same with you guys and your children, is that tell them stories. Tell them stories about your past life. Tell them stories when you're looking at a tree and say, hey, I used to climb trees, or when you're walking around and you see a car that you like, that you maybe you used to own. Tell them a story about that. It brings the world alive to them. And frankly, it'll make you a better communicator with your kids when you can tell great stories. And they'll often want you to tell them and retell them over and over and over again. Tip number 9, when it comes to communication, man, over communicate all the things. Over communicate all the things. Here's a diagram on the right when it comes to cognitive level, key questions you can ask, and words that you can use when you're asking questions to your children. This is a great model. It's a great matrix to use. This is the time when you guys, when we're working in this and living in this world, it's a time to engage the whole of your child, of your child. You can use the 5 whys, which for some of you guys in the corporate world, you've probably heard this before, is you just keep asking why. Why does it happen like that? Why does it work like that? Why is this the outcome? Why is this the outcost? Why did it appear like this? You can ask those questions, but you can also use Bloom's taxonomy to the right, which I just revealed here. Bloom's taxonomy is great for engaging with your kids, using simple words, simple terms that can get them engaged in the work that they're doing and also engaged with you. One thing that I love here is this third point is asking great questions and over communicating all the things can help your children see that you're an emotional creature too. You're human too. You deal with stress, you deal with dissonance, you deal with conflict, you deal with prioritization, you deal with management of time. These are all real things that they're going to have to deal with in the real world as they get older. And so don't be shy around your emotions with your children. I know that each of us comes from different cultures and different ways that we were raised. And some of us were raised in families where the dad and the mom showed no emotion. And then some of us were raised in families where they were just emotional explosions all over the place. Find a balance if you can, but don't be afraid to reveal your emotions when you're frustrated. It shows your kids that you're real. And finally, reward good behavior when your kids do great things. Encourage them. I don't have to tell you or give you a speech on that. Positive feedback and positive encouragement trumps negative encouragement every single day. And so try to keep things positive, especially when you're communicating as many things as you can to your children. And our last tip for today, so we're going through it, and I want to make sure that you guys get all of it so we can get on to an exercise, is that when it comes to working from home and this new reality that we live in, it's important to connect with other people in your company. Life has changed. Let your work know. And so I love using this, and I've used it with several clients so far and helping them build their communities internally. It's from Org Hacking, and it's a remote work canvas. It might not be perfect for your organization, but it could be a powerful framework that you can modify and edit and change so that your manager, your coworkers, your colleagues can understand, hey, this is how I'm dealing with work. This is when I get sleep. This is when I schedule things. This is when I need to get physical exercise. And having that type of transparency can allow your fellow colleagues, your fellow employees, the people that you work with, understand the new reality that you're trying to create and the new environment that you're in. When it comes to this remote canvas, here's the directions. Again, you guys will get this PDF so you can leverage it. But these directions tell you how to fill it out, with the first focusing on understanding, number 1, our boundaries and understanding the personal and professional. So finally here, your relationships are what matter the most, right? We now face more challenges at home than ever before. And in many ways, work is tough. Our relationship with time has changed. Now, let's be intellectually honest here. When it comes from working from home versus pretending to work at home, I know we've all suffered from that. I'll be the first to raise my hand. It's not that I'm pretending to work, but let's be honest. When you're at work in a physical place, you're required to work for a specific amount of time, and in some cases, rather than being focused on simply completing tasks. And at home, that ruins things. If you feel like you have to be at the desk for 8 hours straight, life becomes a chore and a burden. You're not actually completing all that much. And so creating a new schedule, communicating that new schedule to your colleagues, to your managers, to your boss, to your leaders, whoever it is, helps them understand that, hey, at the end of the day, and this is kind of a tip for the organization, is that we want to focus on the outcomes here of your work, not necessarily time in the seat. Or we really need to be there 8 hours consecutively, or can be 4-hour chunks or 2-hour chunks. Life is going to be different for each of you guys. And I can't even tell you what my schedule is going to be like tomorrow. I'll review it tonight as I make the overnight oats and all the snacks and all the meal prep that I have to do. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to be at this desk 8 hours straight. There are going to be times where I'm going to be engaged with my son, times where I'm going to be engaged with client work and creating emails and decks and all sorts of stuff. And so one of the things that especially if you're working with others, I have a little bit more autonomy than most, but when you're working with others, helping them understand those time boxes, those time slots in which you're going to be focused and active and engaged in the work, and times when you're not, can help when it comes to people's perception around the quality of your work. Remember, outcome and deliverables is far more important than time in the seat in today's new world. And so in many ways, my hope is for APRIO is that the leadership continues to remember this idea that, hey, outcome, deliverables, quality work, that trumps time in the seat. So it's not all about the time, but it's the quality of the work that you're doing. So I want to do an exercise with you guys, a self-reflection on time. And this is an activity that I've done with a couple other clients before. And since we're living in this new world reality, working from home and also having to help educate our kids, it's important for us to create connections of support within our company. And we have an opportunity. I think we have 50 or 60 people here. And so it's free and easy because we have the time to do it right now. So I'd love for you guys to grab your paper and your pen. Grab your paper and your pen. And I'm going to put 2 minutes up on my cell phone here. 2 minutes up on my cell phone here. And I want you to answer the question and write it down. Write down your answer. How has your relationship with time shifting and changing in our new world today? I'll read that out again. How is your relationship with time shifting and changing in our new world today? I'm going to put 2 minutes up on the timer. Take 2 minutes. Take 2 minutes and write down your ideas here. Write down ideas, metaphors, examples, situations, or analogies. Okay. Alrighty. So I hope you guys have written some ideas down, and now I want you to share it. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to stop screen share for just a second, and I'm going to send you guys out to breakout groups of 4 people each. And what I'd love for you guys to do is everyone share. One can start and share how their relationship with time has changed over the last 4 or 5 or 6 months. And after you're done sharing, volunteer someone. Say, hey, Brad or Susie or Jim, can you share next? That way we don't have a dead moment. Someone go, share your ideas, and I'll let you guys know when the 12 minutes are done. Feel free to engage with each other. What questions or prompts or invitations or discussions or ideas emerged? What was novel to you? What was intriguing to you? What would you like more clarity on? What was interesting or what was encouraging? Ask each other. It's very rare that we have opportunities to share around how our relationship with time is changing, especially in these interesting times today. And it might be an opportunity for us to go a little bit deeper with each other and understand that, hey, maybe we're all not that so different. We're all struggling. We're all dealing with time in a different way. So I'm going to stop sharing for right now. And oops, stop sharing real quick. If I can click on it. There we go. And I'm going to send you guys out into breakout rooms. Okay, so breakout rooms. Again, share with each other your ideas. I'm going to put 12 minutes on the clock. Here we go. There we go. We're all coming back. We're all coming back. Ooh, look at all these faces that I didn't see before. That's great. All these smiling faces. Excellent. Excellent. So I hope you guys had some great conversation. I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I'd love for you guys to use the chat function on Zoom. So you can click on the chat function on the bottom, and I'm just going to share the screen real quick. Type into the chat box any ideas that stuck out to you, or something that you found important or novel to you from your conversations. I was jumping in and out of some of the groups and just listening in, and I really loved hearing some of you guys sharing some of your feelings around what's going on. That's really awesome. I even heard one individual who said that they've never shared this before, which is powerful. It's powerful to be able to share this. So grab the Zoom. In the Zoom chat, if you have anything that you'd love to share and edify the rest of us with, I'm going to stop share so that I can see the chat. But if you have anything that you thought was novel from your conversations with other people, awesome. People spend more time, quote, at work while working at home. This is true. I'm assuming, Eileen, that what you mean is that if your experience is anything like mine, that during these times, I'm actually working more than I imagined. I thought I was going to be chilling at home. I thought client work was going to die down. Well, it wasn't the case. Everyone's moving online. So it is novel, and it is interesting to note that even during these times, and a lot of people that I've talked to, is that we're even working more now. And it seems like sometimes work can be even more unsustainable. Anybody else have any comments or things that they'd like to share from their conversations with other people in the company? You can post it in chat if you'd like. Jackie Flake says, no mental breaks without a commute anymore. That's right. So certainly there are times that we need to take some time for ourselves throughout the day to take a mental break. And time boxes work exceptionally well here. I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you guys that I love naps. I'm a big napper. So I like to take at least one solid 20 to 40 minute nap every day, and I time box it. And everyone knows in my family that that's when Appa goes into his little hole and doesn't come out for a little bit. So definitely take time for yourself. Mental breaks are great. Any other comments? Any other things that you'd like to share? Thanks, Eileen, for sharing. Thanks, Jackie, for sharing. Dave says, it's awesome to be talking about this stuff, especially in small group discussions with folks that I don't know well. Awesome. That's by design, Dave. We want to create, and we're going to be talking about this in a little bit in the next exercise. Ellie says, hi, Dave. We want to look for opportunities to create internal communities here, internal communities of support. And it doesn't have to be a corporate thing. It doesn't have to be something given to us down on high. But what I'm hoping is that maybe from our first breakout group, or even the second breakout group that we're going to be breaking into in a little bit, you might find people that can help support you through it. And might be people that you can collaborate with and say, hey, this is what I'm learning at home. This is how I'm dealing with the knuckleheads that I got to deal with, these little two nuggets at home, right? And sharing and maybe even commiserating together, it ain't such a bad thing, especially when we're landlocked at home and physical touch, physical connection is unfortunately not happening as much as we'd like. Adam Klein says, remote work embodies Parkinson's law. Quote, work expands to fill the time available for its completion. You better believe it, brother. Another way of looking at this is the whole idea of procrastination, right? Studies around procrastination always tell us that if you give someone 6 months to finish the project, it'll take 6 months. If you give them 2 months to finish the project, it'll take them 2 months. So absolutely. When it comes to home life and working from home and managing kids at home, we tend to fill up all the time, and not all of it is valuable. Not all of it needs to be done. Ori says, I feel like I have less time to get things done each day. Certainly. So a couple of the tips that I gave you guys earlier, from creating wall boards to making it all visible to everyone in your family, is really powerful in reducing that stress level of feeling like you have less time. When there are the big things that we need to get done, the independent things that we need to get done, and the things that we need to do as a family are well understood, it gives us a lot more breather room to say, hey, if we finish the big rocks today, everything else might just be negotiable. Alyssa says, remember to unplug completely during DTO. It helps us refresh. 100%. Unplug when you can. And this will be the last one I'll take until we move on a little bit here, is Mike says, my kids are older, in the teens plus, and being around them so much during COVID made me more aware of how fleeting our time is together. Amen, brother. I will tell you that one of the biggest revelations that I've had during this time, even being a work from home dad as long as I have been, during this time, it has helped me realize how important our time is with our kids and how much of an impact I can make on our kids during this time since I'm landlocked. Alrighty, so I'm gonna go back into screen share real quick, and I'm not gonna do a full screen because that removes some of the functionality that I need. I think hopefully this view is okay for you guys. So I want you to grab your pen and your paper again, and I'd love for you to make 4 quadrants on that piece of paper. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm gonna give you a minute and a half. In the first quadrant, I want you to write the question, when it comes to family right now, time feels like, fill in the blank. I put a minute and a half on the timer here. Answer the question. When it comes to family, right now, time feels like. Alrighty. On the second quadrant, a minute and a half, write down this question and answer it. There is always time for. There is always time for. Minute and a half. Alrighty. In the third quadrant, I want you to write down the question, I'd like to protect and hold on to. I'd like to protect and hold on to. A minute and a half. Alrighty, and the fourth quadrant. Write down and answer the question. What I want to remember about my relationship with my family and time is, what I want to remember about my relationship with my family and time is, minute and a half. All right. So I hope you guys have answered those questions. I've often gotten responses of, wow, I've never thought about time like this in a long time. I hope for some of you guys, this is an opportunity to do a little bit of introspection around this time. It's nice to be able to kind of take a reflection back. So I'm going to break you guys back out into groups. I'm going to break you back out into groups of 4. Everyone share. One can start, another can share afterwards. Go through each of the quadrants individually. Everyone focus on the first quadrant, answer that, maybe ask some questions or share with each other. Go to the second quadrant, third, and fourth. When you guys get close to the end, or even during the conversation, feel free after everyone is shared, discuss with each other. How can we, as an APRIO community, how can we as employees who maybe have never met each other before, this is the first time that we're talking together, how can we support each other? What mechanisms or systems can we use? What would a working agreement look like? A working agreement is a light agreement that, hey, maybe it'd be great to meet once a week for 30 minutes and just discuss, or even an hour, just to discuss what's going on and what's going on in my life, my work-life balance, something like that. And lastly, how can we follow up with each other next? So I'm going to stop sharing.
Excuse me, Peter, there was a chat about going back to quadrant 1 and 2.
Oh, sure, sure, sure. I did not see that. Going back to quadrant 1, the first question was, when it comes to family, right now, time feels like. And the second question of the second quadrant is, there is always time for. There is always time for. Okay, so actually what I'll do real quick is I will copy paste that into chat. So you guys have that, since I'm not sharing screen. That's the first quadrant. And this is the second quadrant. Alrighty, so I'm gonna break you out into groups. I'm gonna recreate these, recreate all rooms. And have fun, guys. I'm put 15 minutes on the clock. Share with each other. Let's go.
Much better now, right? Yeah, I've been here.
Okay.
Got visible for the breakout.
It's good seeing you again, brother.
All
Alrighty, alrighty. So I hope that you guys have had the opportunity to discuss with some new people, maybe people that you've never met in your company before. And I would encourage you to keep in contact with these individuals. And if you're willing, maybe you can work with leadership on this as well, is create some sort of support system, support network, maybe even amongst yourselves. Certainly this can be scaled out to all, into the rest of the company as well. Let's go to screen share real quick so I can finish this out. Here we go, guys. Here's your hundreds of free resources. You can go to vchunting.com/free online educational resources, or you can just go to vchunting.com. And on the top right is a link to hundreds of resources that I have personally put together over all these years of doing at-home schooling, education. I've broken it out into several parts, a reading and writing list. So if you want to help your students or your child learn how to read or write, or some of the more complex writing things as your kids get older. Courses and study programs, these are your code academies, your Khan academies, your code warriors. Big fan of code, not code warrior, code combat, huge fan of that. It's such a fun game for kids to learn about coding. So check that out. Music and the arts. So if your kids are into music and the arts, make sure you check that list out. Watching and listening. So this is a consumption. So videos, tutorials, guides. If your kids are gonna be sitting around consuming content, you might as well have it be educational. Printables and printouts. And so I have lots of resources if you want to do printouts, coloring, these types of things, diagrams, mazes, word games, all sorts of stuff. Big fan of foreign language programs. So there's some great resources out there if you want to help your kid learn a new language. To be quite frank, that's actually one of the things that I've been really encouraging in my network, in my client network, especially my clients that I'm helping build communities in, is that this is a great time to learn another language because it requires lots of focus time. It requires lots of engagement, these types of things. It can be really fun. Some of the programs they make learning a new language just exceptionally fun. Online museum tours, this is something that took me like hours and days to put together from all the virtual tours and museum tours that I've done with my kids. Check that out. There's so many great live streams of museums, as well as virtual field trips. Definitely check that one out. Your kids can see animals all over the world. They got live streams from China, Australia, UK, Japan, Korea. And so we've done more than well, I'll be honest here. We've done more than our fair share of say, go check that out. Go check what the animals are doing and tell us what they're doing. And that's a time box of 30 minutes. And sometimes they come back with the funniest stories of, we saw this animal doing something to another animal. Yes, great opportunity for an education on the animal planet. So definitely check out vchunting.com. Also, huge fan of TuttleTwins.com. You see it over here on the right. I am a huge fan of Tuttle Twins. The Tuttle Twins, in a long story short, are small, short books teaching kids pretty much everything that they don't learn in school around the law, around the Federal Reserve, around our monetary system, about the free markets, these types of things. And so it's like, whoa, that sounds like a lot. Trust me, Tuttle Twins does a great job. I also have paid for, and I don't know if I'm supposed to do this, but I think it's okay. If you go to bit.ly Tuttle Twins Guide, that's a PDF of all the workbooks. So it comes with extra workbooks that you can go through and exercise with your kids after they've read the books. So if you buy the books, download the Tuttle Twins Guide. It's just, I can't speak highly enough about them. I'm so passionate about what they've done. And my kids absolutely read these books all the time, and we have great conversations about it. Let's finish up because I know time is limited. Summary: working from home is an emergent process. We learn as we go, and we should expect this. Experimentation is key. Keep trying experiments. Now that you guys have hundreds of links that you could check out with even more thousands of exercises within each of those links, there's a lot of opportunities to experiment and try new things with your kids of all ages. Number 3, be patient with yourself and your family. This is a trying time. You're not alone. That's why Leslie and APRIO leadership has used this opportunity to bring you guys together to talk with each other and engage with each other. Be patient with yourself and your family as you go through this. Let go of expectations is something that my wife sometimes says to me, usually at inopportune times when I'm not getting my way. But it's not about having zero expectations, but rather acknowledging where they aren't being met and choosing something else that you value more, which is usually your relationship. This is something that I always have to remind myself, is that when I'm feeling frustrated, things aren't going well, I didn't have the greatest conversation with my client, and now I have to go in and do 2 time boxes with my son to do some work and education with them. At the end of the day, I forget. It's easy for me to forget that it's not about me, but it is about me, but it's also about the relationship that I have and this awesome opportunity to engage and pour into my son and my daughter. And lastly, I hope that I've encouraged you guys here to find connections within your company and network to help you guys thrive during this new time and these strange times that we live in. Guys, thank you so much for the opportunity. Leslie, APRIO leadership, thank you guys so much for the opportunity. It's been a blessing for me to share some of my stories as well as some of my tips and resources. So we're going to leave it here. If you have any questions, feel free to chat, type them in on the chat. So I'm going to close the screen share right now. Also, the deck is, you can download the deck at bit.ly APRIO Peter 1 if you want to download this deck. And I will send all of this stuff to you, Leslie, so you can spam it out as you will. So I'm going to close stop share, and this will be question opportunity if you guys have any questions. Mike says, thanks, Peter. Mike, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you being here, brother. Jeff says, thanks, great presentation. Appreciate it, brother. Thanks for being here. I see Elise is leaving. Awesome. Ellie, thank you. Thank you, Ellie, for being here. Mark, always good seeing you, brother. You're the man.
All right.
All right. Doesn't look like a whole lot of questions. Looks like people are logging out.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you guys again for your time.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much, everyone.